Welcome back. All right, list video for all you fine people on the internet, using the same numbers I was using on the hockey channel for a list video I did about an hour ago. And I'm going to talk about 10 wrestlers who never won the WWF or WWE World title, who I feel like should have, or WWE title, because now, of course, you have the World title and the WWE title. You guys know what I mean. Honorable mention to Booker T. I don't think he ever had the WWE title. I know he had championships in WWE, though. And there was that one WrestleMania where he should have beaten Triple H. Everything in that feud looked like Triple H was going to get his comeuppance, and then he just didn't. Which was the argument against Triple H at the time, was that he'd have these feuds where he'd just say horrible things about the face wrestler and just, humiliate him. And then when there was a chance for revenge, it just didn't generally happen, which isn't the way sport wrestling's supposed to work. Should be that the heel goes out there and does whatever they're going to do, and eventually the face gets their revenge, either via pinfall or something visually to show that they're superior, right? But in that case, it didn't happen. So, honorable mention to Booker T. Number 10 on the list, going way back to when I started watching wrestling, Tito Santana. And it may seem odd to put Tito Santana on the board to people who may not be as familiar with his work, but Tito was fantastic. And he was over with the crowd. He was really over when I started watching wrestling, to the point where if he had held the title, the crowd would have been so excited. One of the first matches that really got me into watching wrestling was the steel cage match between Tito Santana and Greg the Hammer Valentine, which was won by Tito Santana. He won that title, and I was really excited for him, and I had barely started watching wrestling, but that match was absolutely fantastic. If you can track it down, I would say to watch it. Number 9, and I did look at other people's lists on this to see what they felt was a wrestler who never won the title who should have. Rick Rude's name came up a lot. Rick Rude was a fantastic heel. He was in amazing shape. The one thing that I kind of felt like might have worked against him was, A, it was during the Hulk Hogan era, and B, if somebody was going to win the title, it was probably going to be somebody who was not just muscular, but big. And Rick Rude wasn't exactly a small wrestler, but by those standards back then, where you had guys like King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd, even Bam Bam Bigelow to some extent, who I might as well give an honorable mention to. Bam Bam Bigelow was excellent in his prime. But Rick Rude was an Intercontinental Champion and just kind of stayed at that level. But he was excellent. Number 8. I'm debating about how to write this, but we'll just write his name. You guys all know it's Jake the Snake Roberts, right? Jake the Snake. I mean, we can talk about how he didn't look imposing physically, but Jake the Snake Roberts, between Damien the Snake itself and his DDT, which one of the biggest crimes in wrestling now is the DDT is just another move, which is insane because that was like the most devastating finisher back in the day. And now it's just another move. Now it's just, and they land a DDT and it's a 1-2 kick out. And it's like, Just one of my complaints about modern wrestling. They've taken some of the moves that were awesome and looked devastating and made them just the setups for whatever flippy dippy doodah move they're going to do off the top rope. So, Jake Roberts was excellent, and his promos were absolutely fantastic. If they'd ever put the title on him, he could have been the most heelish heel that had ever healed as a WWF/WWE champion. Number 7 on the list, and actually the reason I'm doing this list, because I've over the years thought about wrestlers who could have taken that belt off Hulk Hogan. Paul Orndorff. When Paul Orndorff turned against Hulk Hogan at Saturday night's main event, I think it was the first heel turn I saw. It was definitely the biggest heel turn I'd seen that first year or two I was watching wrestling, and it was crazy. The crowd went absolutely nuclear against Orndorff, and they were like that for months after. If they had put the belt on Paul Orndorff, I mean, obviously Hulk Hogan would have won it back, but he would have been loathed. They would have had to have security following him around to make sure he was okay, going from airport to airport. Like, Orndorff was, and he was an excellent wrestler. He had the physique. He had everything. Just for whatever reason, he was seen as just that upper mid-card And it was just another feud that Hulk Hogan just flat out won, which is kind of how feuds worked back then. Hulk Hogan wins. The end. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, look, Hulk Hogan wins again. Let's move. And that happened for years. Ages before John Cena, Roman Reigns, etc., etc. And Triple H. Number 6, and I've talked about this wrestler in previous videos as being one of my favorites, and how I was very upset when he had to leave WWF to get seen as a main eventer, and that's Ricky Steamboat. They should have put the belt on Steamboat when they didn't. Wasn't it the year they put the belt on Savage that Steamboat's like, all right. So he understands he's never going to be the top guy, and he leaves. And then when he came back, they put that silly dragon outfit on him, and it's like, he's not actually a dragon. What are you doing? But anyways, Ricky Steamboat was one of those things where it's like, why does Vince have to put silly crap on everybody? What in the world? I'm surprised there wasn't a guy named the Streamer that was just covered in like tinsel and streamers and, rolls of crepe. But anyways, Ricky, does he know somebody's going to create that wrestler? But Ricky Steamboat was one of the best wrestlers I ever saw. One of my favorites. The crowd loved him. That's the thing. These are all wrestlers that the crowd would have embraced as champion or loathed as champion. You want a reaction. When you don't get a reaction, that's when you're out. Number 5. Rusev. When John Cena won that feud against Rusev many years back, I thought it was a mistake. I thought at the very least giving Rusev a short run with that belt would have been awesome. The Bulgarian Brute, it would have been great. And sadly, it did not happen. Rusev, of course, ends up going to AEW. I don't think AEW's used him very well either. Rusev he's a big wrestler. And the funny thing is, I wasn't a big fan of his when he started, but he won me over the years. He's got a great sense of humor. He's got a very solid ability to deliver promos, even though his English at times has been spotty. It's much better now, of course, but he's fantastic. And when you had the Rusev Lana duo there, if he had won the title from, say, John Cena, again, you're trying to get the crowd to get excited one way or the other, and it would have been something a little bit different. But instead, Rusev ultimately loses out and doesn't win the belt. Number 4 on the list. My mother's favorite wrestler of all time, Roddy Piper. Hot Rod. Roddy Piper's battles with Hulk Hogan are legendary, but I can't think of a time he beat Hulk Hogan. And again, as a little kid, I remember watching and thinking, well, Piper's not going to win whenever he was in the ring with Hogan. And that's not really the way that should work. Like, you should feel like there's some peril for your fan favorite. You should feel like, hey, I'm not sure who's going to win this. And with Roddy Piper, sadly, if he was getting a shot at the belt, you knew it wasn't going to work out very well for him. Roddy Piper, the crowd hated him, then the crowd loved him. Either way, he should have had the belt at some point. Number 3. I don't think people are going to argue with me on this one at all. In fact, this one headlined a lot of lists I saw, and that's Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. I'm going with Curt Hennig rather than the Mr. Perfect name, but Curt Hennig was, pound for pound, arguably the best wrestler during that era, when it was more about the showboating than it was about the wrestling. Thankfully, that doesn't happen anymore. Right? But yeah, Curt Hennig was an excellent, consummate performer. His battles with Bret Hart, Bret Hart said that basically the battles with Curt Hennig turned him into, the kind of champion that he became, and he had nothing but respect for Curt Hennig, and true. The battles between Curt Hennig and Bret Hart would have been awesome if they'd been for the world title, and it would have been great if Curt Hennig had won the world title. Didn't Hogan have the belt again at that point? So, yeah. There were many reasons I had for not liking Hulk Hogan in the 80s, and the amount of wrestlers who never won a world title being part of it. At least had never won it in WWE. Number 2 on the list. Now, technically, Andre the Giant wins the title, hands it over to Ted DiBiase, sells it to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. DiBiase was a great ring technician. Definitely, I would say he preceded the Cerebral Assassin as sort of a similar kind of wrestler. He would get in the heads of his opponents, and he did it quite well. He was believable as the Million Dollar Man character. Even though I had watched Ted DiBiase before that in, I think it was UWF, which was out of Florida, and he was a good guy, and I thought he was great. I was like, I really like this DiBiase guy. He's fantastic. Then he goes to WWE as a Million Dollar Man, and I'm like, when did he get rich? I don't remember that character being part of who he was back in the Florida territory, but okay, I guess he's rich now, and it worked. It worked, and he was excellent in the ring. And part of what some of these guys have in common is that maybe their physique wasn't quite Vince McMahon level, and maybe that's part of what it was with Ted DiBiase. But fantastic wrestler, and number one on the list, and I'll explain why. Owen Hart. When Bret Hart got screwed over in Montreal, and all of Canada decided that they hated Vince McMahon and really hated Shawn Michaels. Not a big fan of Triple H either, but he kind of escaped the wrath of Canada for the most part there. He was known as part of the clique, but it was Shawn. It was Shawn. Coming out of that, Owen Hart attacked Shawn on Raw the next night, and all I could think was, okay, if they can take Owen Hart and take this, he's angry because his brother got screwed over character, and put the belt on him in, say, 3 months. So give Shawn a run with the belt, and every time he turns around, Owen's right there. Have him refuse to fight Owen. Be like, no, I'm not fighting him. Forget it. I already beat a Hart. I don't need to beat the younger brother. He could have made fun of him, but it dried up. It didn't happen. The main event push that I wanted for Owen Hart never really happened, and in the end, he's put back in the blue blazer outfit, and he's treated like a joke. And so, what better way to make Canada happy than to treat the other Hart brother like a joke, and then have an error where he wasn't comfortable being up in the rafters in the first place. He was scared of heights, and he passes away in just the saddest manner. I just, it's angering even now to think and talk about. But Owen Hart's one that if they had put the belt on him from Shawn, had Shawn job out to Owen, and one thing that always made me mad at Shawn was he never really lost in a clean manner to Bret Hart. It was always something screwy, and Shawn would always get the last laugh, and then against Owen, it felt like Shawn did too. Owen Hart was one of the best pure wrestlers I think that I ever saw, and he could play a really amazing face. He was great as a heel as well, but he should have had the belt. He should have had the title. At some point in time, Owen Hart should have been champion rather than sticking him in that stupid mask and the stupid outfit and throwing a bloody cape on him. Absolutely ridiculous. Just absolutely the stupidest booking decision ever. So that's a countdown you get to, is the stupidest booking decisions made by WWE. Maybe I'll do a top 10 of that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. See, I told you we'd get back to wrestling content, and here we are. I will talk to you again soon.